Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to be discussing Legend by David Gemmel, and this is the first book in the Draenei saga. Originally was called Against the Horde as well, so I've seen some people actually have really old copies of it with that name, which is cool. But this is the first book that David Gemmel published, and like I said, the first book in the Draenei saga. And it's a very unique setup and premise, and I had heard a lot about it. A lot of people saying it was very good. This is something I had recommended in comments on previous videos. I had people in the Discord recommend it. So I was pretty excited to get in. And I expected to like it. I really honestly didn't expect to like it as much as I did. This was a really fantastic book. It was really well written. There were definitely some flaws, but I enjoyed it so much. One interesting thing I'll note is this is actually looked at as one of those kind of precursor to grimdark type stories. Now, I wouldn't say that it's particularly like very grim or dark. It's more so pretty realistic with a lot of the different battle scenes and like the interactions between soldiers and others. It also is kind of very much that world at war type feel. The base plot of this book is there's this just massive army that is coming to absolutely destroy a city, wipe everybody out. They vastly outnumber them. And the basically retired elderly man, Druss the Legend, is pulled out of retirement to come fight once more, as well as we have a pretty large cast of characters, but the two other kind of main characters are Rek, who kind of is the unlikely person that's thrust into a role of leadership, and Vere, who is the daughter of the current leader of the city that is about to be besieged. So we get a lot of war, and where I think it really comes into kind of some of the ideas that Grimdark likes to explore is, even though this is an older book, it's very much exploring, kind of dissecting the different tropes, like the hero trope, the kind of like love at first sight, and a lot of different pieces with that, as well as the unwinnable battle, the siege. And it takes a much more kind of realistic and a little bit darker approach than some do. And it felt very real. I loved, and I don't think I've ever, the closest thing I could think of, which is completely different, but where in Terry Pratchett in some of the early Discworld novels has Cohen the Barbarian, who's elderly and is still like out being a barbarian in a very comical sense. But that's the closest thing I've read to a story that starts with the legendary hero who is like in his late 60s, early 70s. He's old. He's getting worse. He's got arthritis and bad knees, and is trying to still live up to the legend of who he is. And it really explores a lot of the ideas of what inspires men to fight and die, the ideas of life and death. There's just so much explored within the confines of this quite short book. It was only, I think, 300-ish pages, a little over 300. And quite a lot was taken a look at that. So kind of dissecting those and taking a look at the hero at the end of his life. There are, I know, some later ones where he is younger and we're kind of witnessing some of the deeds that made him a legend. But it was very interesting to take a look at some of those things. We have a lot of scenes in this book where you feel like you know what's going to happen, and oh, it's the hero, he comes in, he's going to inspire everybody, they're just going to follow him. And you even literally have some scenes where that's called out, like, what, you thought you were just going to like come in here and we're just going to follow you? Like, we don't want to die, what are you talking about? And a lot of those things that just go the more realistic and kind of different way, and it's always interesting exploring those in fantasy. And so for those, I would honestly say, who are fans of Joe Abercrombie and First Law and those series, I would highly recommend this, because it's very different feel, and Abercrombie, his prose is on another level. The prose here is a little bit more simple. It's not bad by any means, but it's very fast paced. It's also different from that series, but just kind of the idea of looking at wars and power and politics and kind of a bit more of a cynical but not in your face type ways is something I really got from Legend that I enjoyed. I feel like Abercrombie gets a little bit too in your face with it sometimes, and David Gemmel for me did not do that here. So that's quite a lot about it, and really, this book, one of the most interesting things, and it at points could be a little bit jarring, but it still kind of worked for me, was the fluidity that you change POVs, even sometimes in scene. You'll start with one character and then you'll move to another character, and it just kind of flows from person to person. It's an interesting way to sometimes see how people are seeing a scene differently, what different people are thinking. And though the kind of the main characters are very well written, a lot of the smaller or side characters were what really, really stole the show because they felt so real and so human. We have these soldiers who, most of them aren't really soldiers, they're farmers. They came, some of them looking for glory, some of them just feeling like it was their duty to come and facing this very real life or death decision, because from the outset of the story, we're told there's no way in hell this city can hold. They have only thousands of defenders against like 500,000 coming from this entire empire coming to destroy them. And they're told you're supposed to hold anyway. And that's kind of the start. And just looking at the human cost of war is a lot in there, seeing these different people, and some of the most like just heartbreakingly well written scenes were not even from characters that were really in the story itself. It was just moving to, we're gonna briefly look at this person's POV and then we're gonna kind of show some things happening, and just that like flowing tide. It was almost like you were a wind being blown through some of the battles or some of the scenes, just seeing what's happening with just the normal people. We're not just focusing on generals or Dross himself, the legend, or the kind of the characters that their destiny is something greater. We're actually really looking at in the trenches, looking at these people who are fighting and dying, looking at these people in their lives and how they're affected. And it was just very, very enjoyable. And this was a book I really liked pretty much from the outset. Enjoyed it a lot, but the ending, the last kind of bits of the battle and the way we looked at characters really, really sold me on this even more. I thought this was an amazing book. I was just, like I said, not expecting to like it nearly as much as I did. I'd heard really good things, but I just wasn't expecting it to click so well, it being the first book by a new author. And so that makes me speak very highly of David Gemmel. I thank everybody who did recommend Gemmel to me, because I've really enjoyed reading this, and it was really fun doing it as the buddy read for April for the channel. It was a little bit of a shorter one as well, but that's kind of my thoughts on Legend. Like I said, I really, really thoroughly enjoyed this. There were just a lot of great elements from the different people fighting, just the interactions. We get some warrior monks. We have a little bit of magic here and there. We have like a Robin Hood type character. We have just a lot going on in there, looking at some familiar ideas, but really playing them in a different way. And I love having a fresh take, even though it's a pretty old book, but it was a pretty fresh take at the same time. So I definitely think this was ahead of its time, very much for sure, because this is the type of book. Granted, it does read as being a little bit dated fantasy. If you read, 80s fantasy like Dragonlance or other stuff like that, you do get at some point some similar feel. It does feel like it's from that time, but the kind of the stylistic approaches and the way that the narrative and tropes are handled is very much something that's only become more popular today. So I know quite a few read this along with us for the buddy read, so definitely let me know your thoughts. If you agree with me, if you had different reactions. I know we chatted a lot in the Discord about the book as well too, so it was really nice getting to talk through everything with you guys on it. If you have not checked out the Discord, make sure to check the description for the link below to the Wizardly Duo Discord that I run with Andrew's Wizardly Reads. Always having a lot of fun there talking about books. We do buddy reads most months as well, and really have a lot of fun there. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to give it a like, and if you want to see more of my content, then don't forget to subscribe.